is Raw Skye, and we are here with Kiko for the ups and downs of Raw podcast. And I heal myself with raw food, so did Kiko. And this is episode 16, where we're going to focus on how you should focus on love and not food. Hey, Kiko. Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted.
I have just muted. Hi, Skye.
Hey.
Yes, I'm very happy to be back. And yeah, with Skye, we were just chatting, and our topics can go so many directions. We can.
They can. They can. This one is very close to my heart. Usually you suggest topics. I suggested this topic because I don't think people completely understand how much I am still raw because my focus is love. How I can do what I do because my focus is, well, essentially self-love. I can love others because of self-love. I can heal me because of self-love. And I think when we focus on the love, is we are kinder to ourselves, we're more accepting, we bring things into our lives which align with us. And so I wanted to talk on that. What's your experience with the self-love?
Yeah, this is great. And I do notice this is your center, Skye. In every time I speak to you, that the focus is love. But I think everyone knows that we have to focus on love. It's just how we do it. It's always the process, because in society, and also women, and for me being Asian, how I was raised, like we have to always think about others. And it's so ingrained that it's very difficult to focus on ourselves. So how do we focus on self-love? So there's, I think today we can, in this podcast, I would, we can talk about how we have done it out to ourselves, like how.
Sure. So I was going to say, I want to go back to when I was a child and what I was told often. And it's not necessarily my parents' fault, it's the way society is built. So anytime as a child, and this is what's ingrained in us, I was putting me first. Skye, you're being selfish. Do this for your sister. That's not very nice. You're only thinking of yourself. This is a voice that and I don't necessarily, as I said, I don't think it was my family. I think this is everyone's parents, maybe even more so in your culture. But I was a very confident child, but pushed down because of this. Every time I tried to do something for myself, I had to stop and put others first. And I do think this is a foundation of self-destruction, in the sense that even when I was at my sickest, a lot of times is to get to someone's wedding or something, I would take copious amounts of pain medication for being there for that person. I was so sick and, dissociated. Do I say at that point I wasn't dissociated, but in a fog, I'm probably better off resting, but not so much for big events when it was something that I really cared about. But before I got to a point of only going to specific events, I pushed through for years in a self-destructive way for other people. And this comes off the back of what people say to their children. I do think it's changed. I look at how my sister raises her girls, and even how they spoke about at school, that it is more love focused, but I still don't think it's the whole picture. It took, and I think the voice we get when we talk to ourselves is the voice we hear from family, from teachers. Put others first, go and donate things and go and do charity work. That's all good and well, but what are you doing to get to the charity work? Are you throwing back 2 coffees and a bacon and egg McMuffin? You're overstressed. You wish that you had time to have done yoga that morning. Have a green juice that morning. And I think we're talking about 2 different things, and a lot of people are still caught up in that voice in their head of authority figures saying that's selfish. Don't do that for you. It was really having no one, and the raw foods. I can't express how much they taught me love. As in, I would eat them and feel this kindness in my body. And that allowed me to see that I could make choices or navigate the love compass in my life with basics. You have to start with basics. You can't go fixing whole charity systems. And I just think most of any charity work I did in my life was self-destructive. And doing that was actually passing on, you can call them negative vibes or the energy I bring wasn't true because I wasn't looked after. And that's what people have to remember is don't go out helping anybody, including parents who are like, I've got to do this for my family. Well, what if you took 6 months to learn to care for you? Okay. And then for the next 40 years or however long you're on this planet, your children and husband learnt love from you, as in like you had to go away and be isolated while you did more raw foods, or you said, I can't be around you. Yes, they have lessons to learn when you say, I can't be around you. But the blossoming I know my nieces, my sister, my friends doing this podcast, my family get from me spending time learning to actually truly fall in love with me. And I don't think McDonald's and coffees and pushing through or involved in any way in self-love, they're the saying no, constantly saying no for a period of time until everything you decide comes from a yes.
Yeah, this is interesting because I think it comes in so many layers. The first experience that we have is usually by our family. So, we are trained, our family always tells us like how our child can cope well, or in this society, because we have to be in this usually in a society to blend in, and it makes it easier. I think the parents, what the parents is trying to do is trying to educate you so that it will be easier for us to live, right? Because it's not just family member that we have to deal with. So I understand this is part of the education, and for example, the education here in Japan it hasn't changed pretty much since World War II, which has been implemented by Americans, because we lost the war in World War II. Japan lost the war, so U.S. came and they have pretty much set the law and also the education system. A lot of people actually don't know that the education system has been written by American. And what they did was same in the States. It's basically military system. They wanted people to be submissive and work in this society, like a factory worker. And because of this education system, we are told to be, to follow the mass and to be submissive and be like everyone else. So if you are doing something else, like you are always called out to be like a black sheep. So I think I just relate to Skye, your story about your parents. Sort of education, how they try to teach you. Oh, be nice. Be with your sister. Am I far?
How is that easier when everybody grows up sick? So I think we have to look at the big picture. And as a black sheep, are you a black sheep if before you go to school you have a green juice and do yoga? Like, it's one of those things where you won't fall in love with yourself till you truly face the fact that it didn't work. What's going on does not work. And it's not about changing anybody around you, like not one soul. It's just about little changes that you make so you can learn to love you. And it may be like what I see when people go raw is that all of a sudden they're extremely stressed at work and they can't cope. Like it's unbearable. They can't get up. It's because it's not in alignment. And is that uncomfortable? Yes. But the power that I found in nature and the power that I found in being true to myself is stronger than any construct that man has built. God is stronger than man. So the more I learnt to trust in me, it's scary. One of the scariest things was, as someone on disabilities, um, spending all my money on food. Every time I got to that cash register and the bill came up, everything I'd ever learnt told me this is wrong. But I realized in myself is if I wanted to really trust in myself and God and nature, this is the right way. Like what I'm buying here is all going to make me good. You know, it's different if you turn up and I was there buying, 2 coffees and a bottle of wine and I'm feeling guilt and shame and want to rush out of the shop. But I'm there confronting like all my money is about to go. But do you believe in this? And there was everything singing inside of me. And it wasn't out like the only voice of chatter was the construct. So when we look at it being easier, it's not easier when you look at someone's life as a whole, and not just in Japan, but in the USA and Australia. By the time someone's 40, they're on copious amounts of medications. Like to get through a week of work, they're needing Tylenol. I think it's in America called Tylenol and things like that. It's just normal. And that isn't being kind. Like you have to think in the big picture, like maybe even a student decided to get up and have a green juice. That's what they did. They still go along with everything. But they notice by the time they're 30 that they have clearer mind. They're not needing as many addictive properties. That's self-love. It doesn't have to be this whole, you don't have to change. I definitely did not wake up and start doing yoga and even get outside. It was the small little changes that felt good in me, and that I felt this, and it's deep, it's undeniable, it's love you feel. And those are the constructs of like that I had learnt were just not strong enough. As long as I picked this like deep-seated love infusion.
Yeah, I mean, again, what I was trying to share was, how the society has educated us, and so did our parents. So we were told to act in certain ways, so that's easier for the system to work with us. So like, with this military system and also factory making system, they wanted people to be more submissive, and therefore the education, I think there's good and bad in whatever we see in this world. And I was definitely brought up with that education system. And definitely it took a long time. So like focusing on the self-love to heal, I think everyone knows this, but again, like how we do it it's a process for each person. Like for me, when I'm feeling not good, the first thing I can do is like easiest thing for me to feel good before, it was to reach out to someone and give my love, and that made me feel good, before taking care of myself. Like I think I needed that external help, or you know what I mean, like you need, when you help people, you just feel good. That was
But if you've got disease inside your body and you're not addressing it, and you start to feel bad and you rush to the phone to call somebody else, that's as good as a drug, in my opinion. And what I used to do is, even in my sickest days, one of my greatest pleasures was if someone rang, they had a problem that I spent time fixing it, because we find when somebody usually comes to us, we see clearly, we don't have all these massive emotions. When something really traumatic happens and we go through emotions which blur our vision. So the way we see the actual problem, we can not make the correct decision. When somebody comes to us with a problem, because we don't have all these emotions attached, we get dopamine from someone saying, thank you, that helped me. Where inside you may have disease, or you may have a bit of depression, and for a moment you feel good. I'm talking about consistently feeling good. So I'm talking about and I give this example of how I knew raw foods were good, because a lot of people, and Jillian brought it up, she's like, because I said, choose foods that make you feel good. And she goes, well, what about the people saying pizza makes me feel good? And I'm like, yes, pizza makes you feel good for one moment, but I want the whole package. So if I make a salad, buying it makes me feel good. Taking it home, chopping it up makes me feel good. Eating it makes me feel good. Afterwards, I feel good. And the next day, I feel good. Usually, if somebody comes to you with a problem, is you'll feel good in that moment, but you'll start seeking out wanting to go and comfort somebody else. You're not just going to go on with your life. And it's raised you a bit, like raising that vibration. It hasn't just connected. You constantly think like next time something goes wrong, I need someone, I need to call someone. Whereas what I found in self-love is I sat with it and had a lesson to learn, and it was always about me versus anything anymore being external. As long as I was fed and watered, then nature had the whole package, which essentially was like me mirroring me, as opposed to I was someone who, sorry if you can hear that noise, I was actually, my friends used to call me, Skye can fix anything. Skye can fix anything. And I think it was because I was so broken and been through so many levels. And I used to get this rush and feel like I had value. Whereas the only value I ever needed to have was to learn what my body needed before going half broken and trying to fix someone else's problem. Because that's the other issue, is the advice you give is broken advice. It's not, if you're not whole, it's not like what I can do for someone in 5 minutes now versus what I could do half broken. I was just passing on more broken. You can only pass on what you are. Now I truly feel, even just sitting with someone for a period of time, and what they can learn in that period of time is I feel good about it consistently. Even the next day, I don't go, should I have said that? Shouldn't I have said that? Because I've showed up with the green juice and the exercise and the fresh air and the love. And so what I give is always all of me.
Mm-hmm. So, what are the tricks to focus on self-love? Because I think, what I see people suffer is that even though that they know that they have to be kind and give self-love, they're in this vicious cycle of harming themselves. Most of the time, they're self-consciously. And I do think that for me, food, because people usually eat 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, dinner. And most of the people that I see, 99% around me, they just eat whatever they can grab. They're so busy, and either they're just so busy to not focus on what they what they bring into their food, their body, or they're just addicted and they can't stop eating. So to me, raw vegan food is the first place of self-love.
Yeah. And I always bring this up so many podcasts, is because Chris Kendall said it really well, is if you're out of self-love, you can't talk yourself into love because you're at a dense vibration. So you'll just be getting more dopamine. But in your darkest hour, when you're full of disease and you're full of bad thoughts and bad decisions, even with all of those stuck to you, if you start putting packages of physical light inside your body, being raw foods, you can't not change. But to do that, you're going to have to sit with terrible thoughts. I don't want this. I want pizza. I want that. And that's in my opinion, in the way that the world is, you cannot find your true self without raw foods, just because it's so dense. Like every thought you have is in the reality that you're at. So you may think that you're able to get yourself out of things. But in my experience, I feel like I tried everything. I was even whole food vegan, and I couldn't get out of even addictive tendencies, or even this horrible voice that lived inside of me that just spoke to me with such disrespect that I didn't know until I put light packages in. And then once the light was in, my body was almost, I guess, vibrating higher and had to be in nature. So, and I'm not saying that people have to only eat raw food for the rest of their life. I feel like I tried so many things, and I watch people every day, and a lot of the decisions we make can't we just can't see it until we're full of freshness. And once you've been raw, make the decision if that's where you want to stay. But how you feel on that, and that really, I think, comes from the person, and it's not. And when you make that decision to, in that body that's dense, put that in, you're going to have a whole lot of thoughts come up. That something inside of you has to believe that you're going to put the light energy in, just to start feeling you. Like, instead of being a whole heap of constructs, you get to feel you.
Okay, so food is very important, right? What can a person who has a hard time, doing this self-love act? So, what we put inside is important. And what would you say for the second thing?
Nature and isolation come hand in hand. The voice you have, it reminded me, because I'm always alone, right? Most of the time I'm alone. I do talk to my like you guys, but most of my day I'm alone. When I was recently with around Jillian and a whole lot of people, I loved it. But you are constantly thinking of other people. And I'm not saying, and this is, how much do you want to heal? I'm not going to sugarcoat what I did, because I can't change it. As in, like, I was always around people, and I still think if I lived at home, is the voices impact us. And people start to see you, maybe your vibe drops a little bit, and they're like, you've only eaten just, I don't know, carrots and mangoes today, you need this. And how much we are the voices around us. This isn't forever. But if you, and you don't have to even, I think, move away from people, but when you are confused, if you take your shoes off and you sit outside, and if you find that uncomfortable, sometimes I'd have food with me. The more you do that, I swear, it's like plugging into something stronger than ourselves. And that's the only time I've ever known something stronger than myself. So if I was to say what it is, it's raw foods, it's nature, and it's being by yourself. And for a lot of people, that's overwhelming. And I'm not saying I even did this, like I woke up and I'm like, I'm a yogi. It's just, I started to notice, once raw food was inside, if I was out in nature, my whole body was just better. And I was alone. I don't believe I could have done it, even noticed the difference the raw food made. And after that, my whole life flooded open. But I have to stick to those rules. Even this week, I've been really busy with work, and not even necessarily take my shoes off. Every time I go outside, everything just calms. I'm like, Skye, you have to remember. I always knew this would come, where I'm, working and I'm busy. The actual cure is, once you've got the fresh food inside and you're making good decisions, those good decisions start to waver when we become disconnected.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's you have to dance with it. I mean, the nature definitely helps, but I think for me, the second important thing is pay attention to the music in your head. So the music could be anything. Music could be your self-talk, or the repeated talks from your parents or close people, who might have unconsciously put you down. So like, I think doing yoga, meditation, going to the nature is all great, but I think paying attention, and that starts with, being alone. I totally agree. I think for someone like me who was addicted was external love. So I always needed attention from others. And I felt so depressed the moment I was alone. So yeah, I remember when I was living in New York, I shared this in my Namado book, my first book that I've been wanting to publish for 21 years, and I finally published this May. I've shared it in detail. And when I was living in New York, I had such an amazing time, and I was dreaming beyond my dreams. And during the daytime, I'm having such a great time, great career, great friends. And the moment I am alone in my apartment, I felt so depressed that I just didn't know how to go on with my life. Like I just wanted to end my life. And then that
Wow.
was every night. It was, and I always used to think like, how is it possible? I'm living the best, life ever. And it's just, I had so much excitement going, and then just like boom, like right before going to sleep when I'm alone, I'm just, I had this, you know, repeated depressive moments. Uh,
Wow.
yeah. So, you know, I'm just sharing this to say that we always have to pay attention to our music because we are always with us, and you know, being paying attention to our music inside of us help us to choose wisely who we spend time with.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think that's so important. I actually notice, and I think that's why I love raw food and nature so much, is I can stop all music in my head if I have been, especially with salt water, if I've had raw foods and I have bare feet and I walk, and I'm talking bare feet just walking along people's grassy knolls around the block. And all of a sudden, everything stops and I can recenter. And I will be honest and say, I think it happens to some degree in nature. If you've had a beach day and you've run around, you probably come home at night, and you've got that sea feeling, even without raw foods. But raw foods completely stops it for me. But what's interesting about as I've rebuilt my life is how, because a lot of my time is spent indoors, how we forget. We like, it takes me just getting a blast of fresh air, and I'm like, right, Skye, shoes off, let that brain quiet. And I feel like even it's like a circuit breaker, right? Is you can feel so overwhelmed. You may have run into a neighbor that you disagree with. You may have just had an argument on the phone. Work's been stressful. You don't think about nature. It's what we all need to do, though, is to get outside. And once that mind quiets, when it all comes back up, it seems completely different. And I do believe that this applies to people who don't eat raw, is the way it's all how angry, how upset, how you feel is all how you perceive your reality. And it's just we perceive it differently when you're full of fresh food, everything, you're not so reactive, right? So if you can just get, it's like I've been on all medications. I've had psychiatrists, psychologists. I've been scheduled 5 times, 9 psychiatric visits. The one constant, even when I was in psych hospitals and they finally took me off the meds, was getting my feet in the dirt. And back then, I wasn't even on raw foods. It just slowed and changed the way I saw things. The more you lock a person up inside, your nerves and you fume. And obviously, we're little electrical beings. We're supposed to be plugged on the earth. And so my greatest suggestion is if you're trying to go raw, is you have to make a lot of time for nature, because inside a lot will keep chatting at you to not stay there.
Yeah, and then I have people who hate being in the nature, so they might be scared of being close to bugs or being bitten. But you can choose any kind of nature. Like I remember when I was in New York, I love going to Central Park, or even
Yeah.
like Niagara Falls. That's like a lot of people realize how small we are in that nature, and we that makes us believe that and understand that we are part of this nature. And Niagara Falls, you don't need to be in the you just see how magnificent the nature is. And a lot of people actually go to Niagara Falls when they're facing some difficulties in their life, and they come back thinking, okay, I can start all over my life now. It's okay. That feeling of waterfalls and that big scale that helps a lot of people. Yeah.
What's really sad, and this is totally my opinion, is I believe if we all still lived outside, we would not think about pizza or addictive things. Yeah, sometimes I think it would still come up for people, but predominantly I think people would be happy. I don't even eat freshly picked food, but getting the energy from freshly picked foods and sunlight and bathing in waterfalls and watch and how that all feels on us, I think we would all more naturally have this level of self-love. But I like to remember it's not for me to argue what people should do or where they should be. We are also part of a consciousness of Mother Earth, and she is just in a dense space. You know, everything has ebbs and flows, and she is in a dense space. And unfortunately, I believe the more we do heady things, like we get, our society does more computers, and we, you know, top people who have a lot of money are working for banking companies for, you know, 20 hours a day, 5 days, 6 days a week, right? Sleep and repeat it's very heady and disconnected and dense. It's only your job with self-love to not worry about anybody else, but what you're doing. And as you can hear is, I got myself in nature in a psych unit. Now, do you know how isolating psych units are from nature? To the point where when I wasn't allowed outside, I would sit by the window and look at the moon. So no one can tell me, because you can't come at this with what you can't do. You won't get anywhere. All you can do is go, I have a local park. You know, 3 times a week I can get fresh food in. I'm a busy mum, but you know, there's afternoons 2 days a week that I can get outside. I can do that. The more you say I can do that, the more you start to say I can do that. But until you start saying I can do that, I promise you, you will continue to face the entire world with what you can't do. And this is why I've brought up before what I did when I healed myself. Thank goodness at the time, I hadn't been able to concentrate or connect or read, because most of my life I decided to do things and decided I needed to study. And this comes off the back of how we're conditioned as children, is I need to go and research this, buy this book, I've got this dehydrator. Nope, just start. Even if that week you just happen to make one salad, is the doing is the hardest thing. Those books, including podcasts, can't be with you 24 hours a day. You're in your own head. You have to just do. Even if you order all the books, start by then just walking to the kitchen, making some raw food. Even if that night you don't eat right, the next day, start doing, because I promise you it's the only way.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, yeah, some people don't like hiking, but for me, hiking is where I can ground. And being close to this magnificent big trees. I remember one of the very well-known hiking, which is south in Japan. It's called Yakusugi, which is cedar tree, which is over 1,000 years old. And that trail, it took 8 hours for this whole trail. And, you know, I I was concerned, like, what do I bring in this 8 hours trail? And it was so magnificent that I just didn't feel hungry the whole entire,
Yeah.
you know, it was just, it was moist. So even like, I wasn't even dehydrated. I did bring something to drink, but I was just so amazed how I was re-energized, not eating really anything. It was just that, you know, negative ion, they call it. Yeah.
Yes, I was about to say that doctor, I put it on my story a few weeks back, because it's very rare a doctor talks on grounding. And she was saying it's free electrons, right? Our
Mm.
cells, our mitochondria, everything running needs electrons. And we can get that from food. And she said, somewhat, not these days really, with what people are eating, sunlight, grounding out in nature. These electrons is what the body is craving. And you always talk about this, is like, I remember being little in my school holidays in summer, running around with my shoes off, not thinking about food, randomly having a piece of bread and maybe a sausage sandwich, not even finish it, getting back, and you're running all day, but you're so alive. And when you look at summer holiday photos, is you have the bright blonde hair, your eyes are bright blue, you're nice and tanned, you look very healthy. And I've spoken before, is I thought about these things when I healed myself, like, what can I use? I can't use medications, I can't read, I can't, you know, what can I use? And just thinking of these natural things. And this world is so consumed and we're so caught up in it, is we forget that it's all there for free. And that's back to when I would buy my food. I had to remember that my money should be going to the way. And the way is fresh foods, or basically fresh foods. Even before, I believed if I kept up with the fresh foods, I could pay for yoga or Pilates, but I had to stick with it. And it worked. It's the only thing that's ever worked. Every time in my life I've tried to work, even when I was healthier in my teens, is you're just spending your money on things which are just keeping you afloat. Like, it never got anywhere. And all of a sudden, the more I looked after myself, I got somewhere. But so I wanted to also touch on, you have to accept, when I was talking about before, where you are. So you have hiking and you love it, and the universe talks, and I have the beach. And I've talked about when I've been in Skye units, if you only have a local park, you can't face it with, I have nothing. You have to be like, I've got something. And the more you connect with nature, it's like nature just gives. It just keeps giving.
Yeah, and I think each person has to find their balance in nature. Some people, like you, for you, in beach is so important. I love
Oh,
beaches.
yeah.
For me, the forest is so important. A lot of people actually don't realize Japan is over 70% forest. The forest density is as dense as, I think was it Finland? Finland and Japan is very similar, and a lot of people don't realize it because, because of Tokyo, the big city. But it's very, it's Tokyo is a desert area. If you look at the map of Japan, the most population resides in this area, and that's why I just cannot live in Tokyo. It doesn't matter how much people want to pay me to live there. It's very difficult to get to a true nature, and I love where I live in Kyoto. I'm so close to forests and mountains, and even beaches. Like it's very doable within an hour or two. And yeah, and it what I wanted to say is find little bit, try to incorporate on a daily basis, because for some people, it might be difficult to get to that kind of nature. Like beaches, like you're very lucky to live close to the beach. A lot of people cannot have that.
Yes, but if I'm in a psych unit and I can still have nature, everyone can have nature,
Mm,
because I would just sit by the window. You can't face it with what you don't have. You
mm,
have to start with what you've got, and God and the universe and yourself and your higher self, and the work you do will build on that. And maybe in time you build to that place that you have a bigger garden, and then you go through a period where you're forced to move into an apartment. It's all about seeing what you can do that gets you out of it. I didn't get out of anything until I was like, I have the moon. I can sit with that just by the window until I'm allowed outside. I can take my shoes off in this funny little strip of dirt, and never see it as in what you don't have. Oh, others have something else. And you have to be grateful, because then
yeah.
universe shows you more. And I haven't seen another way through self-love. So wherever you are right now, you were always meant to have what you've got. And your job is to see what you can do with what you've got. And it's not like any quick way. It's like, I can make a salad twice a week, or I can walk down to the local park 3 times of an afternoon and just sit there. And I
Mm,
remember actually seeing a good, well, it's funny because I always think that like mental health crises are like that spiritual awakening where you crack through the matrix too fast, right? And you do see in a lot of psych hospitals is people continue to want to grab onto like plants, or they sit in gardens. And yes, you can look at that as crazy, but it's better than any alternative. Like, they're probably trying to ground there. So I highly recommend everybody seeing what you can do and what you do have every day, even if you can't get raw foods in. The more, it's just, I find it very hard. I could never see the light until the raw foods.
Yeah, what I meant by like you're very lucky to live near the beach, it's also by your choice, right? So I like you were saying mentioning, I think everyone has to start small where they
Yeah.
can start. Like when I was living in Tokyo, I was not well and I decided to move away from it. But even in Tokyo, there are, start going to a park or even start doing a sprout, seeing the nature from that little sprouting, that just
Yeah.
wow, makes me connect to the nature. So I totally agree. Wherever, it doesn't matter where we are, there always a way to find, nature in wherever you live. For me, I knew for the long term, I needed to be close to mountain and forest. So there I am. And someone commented that, if I have typhoons, and it is true. This is we are starting this typhoon season, and as I was mentioning before, like we are like we have a huge land of forest in Japan, like over 70%. And we are a country of natural disaster. We live with earthquakes, typhoon, and all that nature. And a lot of people don't realize that, non-Japanese don't realize that we live with this nature. We were part of it. We know how to deal with all these. Every year we have typhoons, and it's just part of it. And again, going back to the negative ion that we talked about, it's just part of our culture, that I was surprised that Americans didn't know about this negative ion. It's like going to hiking and getting that negative ion, close to uh, waterfalls is very, it's something we talk about on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I think also with this comment is when I was in the US, what I noticed about their food in the shopping centers versus Australian is all the things in a packet had so many more ingredients. And in my head, that is just, it makes me think that Americans are superheroes if they start eating whole foods because they've got so much to come off. But the cloudy vision that comes from the more disconnect, like when something's fractured, like that's what we become. It's so clear to see when you start just eating fresh whole foods what's happened. And I think it can be like, it's why I think no matter where you're at, I can't see a way through this without just like fresh and nature. And if you get through that and you decide you want to go back, you'll always know what it feels like to connect with yourself. I know people want like, oh no, wherever someone's at, no matter what they eat, you can love yourself. But what you find you're doing is loving yourself at a level which you can do better at. There's no point loving yourself if every morning you're eating bacon and eggs on toast and you're feeling lethargic and like crap. And then you're sitting in meditation, you're like, I love me, I love me. And it's like, do you actually love that whole picture? Yes, there might be a moment your brain lights up and you feel good. And I think that's why raw foods is so good at teaching us, because we actually do feel good. The person you fall in love with is the true you.
Yeah, and it is definitely a journey. But again, I always encourage to do little step. Everyone's journey is so different, and but the first step for me is always physical form, like food coming into my body. It's the best care that I can start with, and yeah.
I also just wanted to touch on how important it was for me when I healed myself, is because a lot of people say, did you juice to get well? And I finally had to teach myself to love me. If I had to get up for 3 months and do something I didn't like or dreaded in any little form, it was not a journey of self love for me. I had to finally learn that, what do you want, Skye? I don't feel like greens today. I just want some carrot and beetroot. that's going to make you feel satisfied, and it's going to make you feel good during and after. And then the next day I'd make a new decision. And this was very foreign to me. Even if some sort of medication had some sort of relief, once again, that whole picture wasn't good. There was side effects. You might get some relief, side effects. You become addicted. You need more. And I was teaching myself that you can make choices every day in love. And I highly recommend people falling in love with themselves.
Yeah. And I think, again, each person has to accept that, never to compare with others, because you have
Yeah.
what they are going through. Never to trust what people share on just SMS. Like, I like, someone said, never, if you want to be jealous of someone, you have to be jealous of the whole entire process for them to get to, right? So like Skye, a lot of people might be envious of your lifestyle now, right? Like, you're doing what you love, but are they, you can't just pick one, one part of your life. Like, can they bear what you have gone through, everything in your life, to get to where you are now? And most people probably won't be able to, or they wouldn't, they cannot bear, they wouldn't be envious of that part of your life. But yet you are who you are because of what you have. That was such a huge lesson to me. I'm not the kind of person who gets envious or jealous. It's just not in me since I was a child. But sometimes I say, oh, that's, what, let's say if I'm suffering with something, like, oh, that's nice that my friend she can eat whatever, like McDonald's, and she can do whatever. But like, you just can't pick one part of this person and
Yeah.
be.
And another good example of that is when people all the time say, oh, I wish I could just, when you're at the restaurant, just eat what everybody else is eating. You can totally do that, but the whole picture is you get all their disease. That's what you're picking, right? Is you want that instant gratification, but that's not what that person's got. And also, usually by my memory, is people eating a lot of dense food have constant chatter. Like, you may see them eating something stimulating, but it might just be taking them halfway to normal because they're so miserable inside their body. So by you picking that, and that's what people don't remember. So when they wake up the next day feeling bad, you haven't just picked a moment of gratification, you've picked a whole circus of mess to think about. I also just wanted to touch on, I think destroying nature for farming animals and killing animals kills the soul. There has to be an awakening, not judging, but it's so bad in so many ways. So that is not my circus. I cannot control all of that. But what I can do is, instead of focusing on that for even a split second, I can go outside and say, son, I love you because I love me. And it may just be a moment in time, but watch how many moments we start to judge people all day and we pull ourselves down. The best thing you can do is just keep loving you, because I know the difference I've made on this planet from loving me instead of self-sacrificing and focusing on all the negative that's out there and becoming part of it, because you have to match energy, you can't not. And so the best I can be for someone is not to yell at them for the choices they make, but let them see the results of all my self-love. Why are you so happy? Why is Auntie Skye constantly playing with us and all bubbly? And I feel so good from being around her. And I learnt today that I can have like farmers market apples and stuff. And that adds up over time. If I sat lecturing my nieces on decisions they made, I'm just adding to their burden. And it makes me feel horrible. Where I learnt, and it's a lesson I had to learn, because a lot of us can get fiery, but I can't control even Kiko, who's a good friend of mine. And I don't want that. I hope that she learns the most from my love.
Love.
Yes, we have to love.
Yeah. And for me, I think what who was the solitude mentioned. For me, that stage was necessary to understand what was going on, in life, and I do think that she's not focusing. I think it's good that she understands that that's happening, and that therefore solitude is taking action not to be part of it. That to me, that even though I'm not focusing on it, or she's not focusing on it alone, that to me, to be a vegan, a committed raw vegan, was so important that that's happening. It's not my control, but I had to understand it. And I'm the kind of person, sorry, I just want to finish
Sure.
off. I'm the kind of person who sort of like to be living in a la la land, which means that I choose my reality. I do think whatever the chaos and tragedy that's happening, uh, I just believe that it's happening for good. And that's the next topic that I wanted to speak on our podcast next week. Um, you know, the hard lessons help us become shine, and you know,
Mm.
those are great lessons to learn. So,
And you're right, everybody is on a different journey. So, just about my personal self love is I feel nauseous even like just talking about what I did. And I had to learn for me to be my higher self and not sit at lower vibrations. I can't sit in that mess. Like for me to be the best me for the masses, I can't sit in that. And you're right. I guess I just felt all of any time I felt or sat and thought through negativity, I slowly diffused into it. And that was part of my lesson. But you're right, everyone's like at a different stage and has different lessons to learn, even, and, and feels differently. But for me, and that's probably why I'm even like when people go to events and they're like, it's really hard and and I can't be raw there, I leave. I have no shame, no problem in how hard I have worked to feel this good, to feel this happy, to sit in my own energy and just feel love. No party, no family event, nothing will keep me there. I will walk. Even if I have to stay, I will just be outside and I'll just play around in nature wherever I am. I'm way past like because all the work I've done, I can't undo. Like it's a lot of work to fall in love with yourself and that ain't going anywhere.
I love it. I love learning about you, Sky. A lot of people know how precious you are, and each person is so different, and I really am very grateful to have wonderful friend like you in my life, Sky. And one character of Sky is that it shows in her face. She's very honest. In She doesn't have to say anything. Her expression, you would see as soon as she sees or put up something negative from the comments. And I'm not just talking about like one of our podcasts. I I had to ask Sky, like, were you okay? Was there something I said that made you feel uncomfortable? And it's just something about you that you're very sensitive to some
Mm.
negative words. And some people are completely okay. Like my husband, he's very grounded. Or like he can watch a horror movie and he's completely okay. He can hear some negative words and he's just grounded. I'm sensitive, but you're much more sensitive, Sky. And you don't have to say it in words, but I can see it in your face.
Yeah, I start to I start to feel really nauseous, but I also wonder how much that is my trauma. The way I overcome all of that trauma is if I even click into anything negative, you're literally plugging into something so horrific that I
Mm,
can't even sit in a smidge of it. So an adaptive tendency would be to just see positive. And I'm very lucky that I'm so loved that people know that I do that. Like if I walked out of a party, people would know I'm not being a rude cow or a rude person. I just how I cope. And the more
mm,
you do it, and then people see me come back in, and Auntie Sky's all smiling, or Sky's all smiling, And it's because of the little practices that I've learned that keep me up high. And I like being up high.
Yeah, and that's part of our process. Like, this is part of our life. We have to learn about who we are, and yeah, and each person's beautiful. I love learning about people. It's just each journey is so beautiful. Nothing is, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. Each person, like each single person on this earth, has such a beautiful journey. That's how I look at it, no matter what their stage is.
And I totally agree with that. I think everyone is pure love.
Mm,
It's just that there's lessons their soul has come here to learn, and the more we support that, um, I just think the biggest thing I had to learn, and that was the raw foods and nature helped me do it, is if I start seeing negative through my lens, is I start feeling it. It's that
mm,
simple. Raw foods keeps me away from it. Nature keeps me away from it. They're the first foundations, then like good people and good practices. But those two are really good. And then if it starts to come up, I can't sit in it. I just see it as someone's lesson, like, whatever the negativity is, because it was what I had to learn is all the things that I went through. I don't think anyone caused it or it's anyone's problem. I just lessons that I had to learn to get where I am.
yeah, beautiful. And
Yay!
I love to be part of it. I love learning from you. I love learning from others. We are all definitely part of this process of, being in part of life. Oh, koala mama, hello.
Yes, but I love this. Everyone has to decide, and this isn't a decision like you can wake up and do. This is on, like, I feel different levels of soul and higher self, but there's a decision, yeah, everyone comes to when they're full of darkness, when enough is enough. And I feel like I remember mine where I'd had raw food and then have something very simply cooked and go back and have raw food, have something very simply cooked. And then I was up from the raw food and I walked outside, and in my own head, I said, what are you willing to do? Like, what are you actually, you have been through it. Is it that much of a stretch? And I think most people in the dark have been through it. Is it that much of a stretch to eat whatever you want? Because I was already vegan, but you can't cook it. That was like, you can eat whatever, you can have a nut, you can have beetroot, you can have a fruit, you can have whatever, you just can't cook
Mm,
it. I was like, I'm willing to do anything. And I
mm,
feel like that was the final, because I was in so much darkness. I had nobody. I just had really nature kind of around me,
mm,
made me feel something. And that's very true words right there.
Enough is enough, definitely.
All right, guys, this was wonderful. And we read through, like, as we went, like, your comments, and we're so grateful for you guys. And you find the love inside you that makes you feel absolutely amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for all the messages, and thanks Sky for this podcast.
And thank you. And go off and love yourself.
Hey, eat your veggies and fruits.
Yes. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.